jump right into this explainer, shall we? Today, we're tackling a big question. Can Google Drive actually be used as a truly private backup storage? You know, there are over 2 billion active Google Workspace users out there. That is a massive amount of digital history we're all just collectively hoarding. Most of us already have Google Drive, right? It's easy, it's affordable, and is probably already baked right into your daily file habits. So it totally makes sense to look at that giant chunk of available cloud storage and think, hey, I'm just going to use this for my backups. And the short answer is, you absolutely can. But if you want a truly private backup, what really matters is what happens to your files before they ever even reach the cloud.
And that brings us to a really crucial shift in mindset. We need to stop asking, is Drive encrypted? And start asking the much more important question, who actually holds the keys to read your data? See, most major cloud providers, Google included, do encrypt data at rest. But honestly, that usually just protects you if someone physically rips a server out of a data center. Sounds like a great action movie plot, but it doesn't necessarily protect your data from the cloud provider itself. If we're talking about genuinely private backups, it is all about control. Literally. If a company can recover your encrypted backup without your secret password, then a backdoor recovery path exists outside of your control. And if that's the case, well, it just isn't truly private.
All right, Section 3, the privacy trust boundary. We're looking at storage versus private backup. We naturally default to using Drive because it's so convenient, but just dumping files into the cloud introduces a pretty major trust boundary. This really hits the nail on the head. If you're uploading plain text tax records, confidential client work, or maybe some proprietary source code, your storage provider can theoretically read them. If your backup software just grabs your unencrypted files and tosses them straight into Google Drive, you've basically invited the provider right inside your trust boundary. Now, okay, that might be totally fine for a folder of, public presentation templates or funny memes you've saved. But for your exported password vaults, deeply personal family archives, or highly sensitive client data, having all of that just sitting around in plain text on someone else's server farm is a completely different story. Honestly, it's kind of a privacy nightmare. Okay, Section 5, storage is not a backup. Let's answer the harder questions, because here's a critical distinction we have to make. Google Drive is fantastic storage, but storage alone does not equal a complete backup plan.
A real, actual backup system has to independently handle versions, metadata, and integrity checks. You can't just cross your fingers and trust a synced folder where your files happen to live. I mean, think about it. What happens if your computer gets hit by ransomware today? It encrypts your local files, locking you completely out. And then, your sync client just dutifully syncs all those corrupted, encrypted files straight up to Google Drive, instantly overwriting your good copies in the cloud. No way. A real backup plan needs to be able to roll back to an older version from before that bad save or malicious attack. It needs to easily recover files you accidentally deleted months ago, and it needs to do all of that without breaking a sweat.
Treating storage simply as a dumb container while the backup app maintains separate recovery records sounds, honestly, incredibly boring. But in this context, boring is exactly what keeps you safe. You want your backup software to be predictably, wonderfully boring. You definitely don't want it wildly trusting whatever it happens to see floating around in your cloud account. A highly secure setup treats Google Drive purely as dumb storage. The backup app keeps its own independent, heavily encrypted records of exactly what files exist, what historical versions you have, and precisely where everything belongs. By maintaining this independent ledger, when it comes time to restore, the app just checks its own boring records, grabs the locked files from Drive, and verifies them perfectly, every single time.
Which brings us to Section 8, timing the encryption, specifically server-side versus client-side. Let's look at exactly when your data actually gets locked up.
What's absolutely fascinating here is the timing. Server-side means the provider receives your raw, unencrypted data over the internet, and then they encrypt it within their own system. Client-side, on the other hand, means your device encrypts the data before it ever leaves your computer for the cloud. This timing difference, it's the entire foundation of zero-knowledge privacy. With client-side encryption, your computer scrambles your photos, your tax returns, all your sensitive stuff into total unreadable gibberish locally. Google Drive only ever receives those encrypted, locked backup objects. They literally never see the readable files. And you can actually take that security even further. For instance, apps like Cloudless only request the narrow drive.file scope, ensuring the backup app manages its own encrypted objects without browsing everything else you have in Drive. It's a brilliant application of the principle of least privilege. Think about it. When you connect a private backup app to Google Drive, it shouldn't be asking for permission to read all your existing Google Docs, spreadsheets, or your vacation photos.
By using a restricted connection, the app creates this secure little sandbox. It can only see and touch the specific encrypted backup chunks that it puts there itself, making it completely blind to the rest of your digital life.
All right, section 11, what the cloud still knows. This is the metadata trade-off. Let's be radically transparent for a second and talk about what client-side encryption actually does not hide from Google.
Client-side encryption does not make you an invisible ghost. The cloud provider still sees the metadata. Those are the basic operational facts of your storage activity. It is so vital to understand this. You aren't operating in some perfect stealth mode like a digital ninja. Google Drive knows your account exists, they know your IP address, they know you uploaded exactly 10 gigabytes of data on a Tuesday afternoon, and they can see the underlying folder structure your backup app created just to organize those encrypted chunks.
It's an honest, practical boundary. Your provider knows a backup happened, sure, but they cannot casually inspect your private documents or photos inside of it. It's kind of like a bank vault. If you're dropping off a locked safe, the bank knows exactly how heavy the safe is, when you dropped it off, and exactly which shelf you put it on. They just don't have the combination to open the door and look at what's inside the safe. And honestly, for almost every user out there, this is the perfect balance. You get to leverage big tech's highly reliable infrastructure, but you don't give up your personal privacy.
Moving to section 14, key responsibility. Let's talk about the honest trade-off behind true zero-knowledge private backups.
This is the harsh but honest reality. If only your device can decrypt the backup and a company cannot magically recover it for you, then losing your required passphrase means losing the entire backup. Forever. We are so uniquely conditioned to just clicking that magical forgot password button and getting a quick email link to reset our accounts. But in a true client-side encrypted backup system, the service genuinely never possesses your key. And if they don't have it, they can't reset it for you. It puts the responsibility squarely back on your shoulders. You absolutely must keep your recovery materials safe. Maybe that's a heavily guarded passphrase saved in an offline password manager, or maybe it's a physical recovery key stored in a fireproof box at home. The point is, it's on you.
All right, section 16, the ultimate restore test. Because a backup you haven't tested or can't unlock, that is not a backup, it's just a feeling.
I really want you to try this practical test this week to make sure you can actually find your file, restore it without guessing, and successfully open it. Seriously, please don't wait until your laptop gets stolen or your hard drive starts making that terrifying clicking sound of death. Pick a small, non-critical folder today, back it up using your encrypted setup to Google Drive, then tell the backup software to restore one single file from that folder to your computer's desktop. Or actually, even better, restore it to a completely different drive. This is absolutely crucial because restoring it elsewhere proves you are actually pulling the backup down from the cloud and not just opening the local file that's already sitting there. Open the file. Did it work? Did the whole workflow make sense? Because if you're fumbling around and guessing how to retrieve your data right now and everything is calm, I promise you it's going to be an absolute nightmare during an actual emergency. The bottom line is this: Google Drive can absolutely be a secure, fantastic home for your private backups, provided you encrypt before upload, you understand the metadata trade-offs, and critically, you prove that your restore actually works. Remember, our ultimate goal here isn't just to hoard data in the cloud like digital pack rats. The goal is confident recovery. By taking the time to encrypt locally, you can use affordable, ubiquitous storage without sacrificing an ounce of privacy, but it all comes down to that final step. So, I'll leave you with this thought. If your computer completely died right now, at this exact moment, are you absolutely sure your backup is actually a backup? Or is it just a feeling?